Wife's family launched a secret cyberbullying attack against me. She hid the truth for years, and now our marriage hangs in the balance. My marriage is in serious trouble after a deep breach of trust that I never saw coming. I honestly don't know how, or even if, I can recover from this or how to ever trust my wife again. We've been together for 7 years, married for 5, and we have a wonderful 2-year-old son. We first met at a convention, and I was immediately drawn to her amazing cosplay. I struck up a conversation, and everything just clicked after that. She was the most loving, selfless, and genuinely good-hearted person I'd ever known. Our relationship, though, was never completely smooth. The biggest struggle has always been her family. From the very beginning, I was made to feel like an outsider. They're an extremely tight-knit group. If one person doesn't accept you, there's no getting in. I always noticed that a few of her relatives strayed from the family but were pretty much ignored by the rest, labeled as black sheep and cut off entirely. Back then, I didn't realize just how central her family was to her life, but I knew how important it was. I put every effort into making things work, hoping to win them over, especially because I could see how much they meant to her. Things escalated when we started planning our wedding. Suddenly, I became the target of relentless cyberbullying. The attacks were personal, vicious messages, fake bad reviews that tanked my business profile, and I lost quite a few potential clients because of it. I had no idea where it was coming from or why. Every time I tried to report it, more fake accounts would pop up, coming at me with another wave. The stress and anxiety tore me down. My mental health suffered, and my confidence took a hit. My wife supported me through all of this. She was my rock, and having her by my side made me love her even more. Eventually, the trolling just stopped. I chalked it up to a dark chapter and desperately tried to move on. But then, out of nowhere, my wife dropped a bombshell on me. Her family was behind all of it. At first, I honestly couldn't believe it. But she was serious and showed me proof, screenshots from their family group chat, filled with smug gloating and self-justification. Things like, some people gotta learn the hard way, and if he wants to join the fold, here's his initiation. I always knew I wasn't their favorite, but this was another level entirely. I never imagined they actively hated me, enough to go after my business and mental health. I needed answers. I asked when she found out and whether she was involved in any way. She swore up and down she'd never hurt me like that, and claimed she hadn't realized it was her family until a few months before our wedding. One of her sisters left a fake profile logged in on her phone, and that's when my wife discovered everything. She confronted them, demanded they stop, and they did, at least as far as I know. But I kept pressing her, why tell me only now, after all these years? She said it had been weighing on her, especially after confiding in her eldest sister, one of the family black sheep. That sister threatened to expose the truth if my wife didn't, but nothing she said made it any better. She knew, for years, exactly what they'd done to me. She kept it hidden, living with me as I tried to process the harassment, opening up to her about the pain, while all along, she had the answer. I felt numb. Betrayed, completely. My wife, on the other hand, was panicked, desperate for me to say something, anything. But I told her nothing she could say now could make this okay. What she did wasn't any better than her family's actions. They made my life hell, and instead of standing up for me, her first reaction was to cover for them. She broke down in tears, begging me to understand, insisting she only wanted to make things right with the least amount of damage, hoping to mend all the relationships somehow. But I couldn't meet her halfway. I wasn't ready, and I told her I needed space, to clear my head, to breathe, to just not have to think about all of this for a moment. She tried to fight me on that, insisting we could work through it together, but I was firm that I needed distance. Space is something she's never truly respected before, and even now, it's a battle. I'm trying to see her side, to find a way past this, but I've never felt so betrayed. I trusted her above anyone else. She's where I've always been my most vulnerable. Even after she knew the truth, I'd talk with her about how much it hurt, and she'd gently guide me to let it go and not allow it to haunt me anymore. I thought she was protecting me for my sake. Now I see she was protecting her family, yet again. I haven't confronted anyone in her family about this. Frankly, I don't think they deserve the satisfaction. But I have drawn a hard line. They're no longer allowed to see my son, not until further notice. That has kicked off a wave of texts, accusing me of depriving my child of grandparents and aunts over past family spats, as if what they did was just a petty disagreement, instead of a calculated campaign to destroy me. Worst of all is the distance between my wife and me now. She's still my best friend and partner, or at least she was. Our conversations are reduced to logistics about our son or the house, nothing deeper. The pain of her crying, the pain of shutting her out, it's almost unbearable. I can't help wondering if I'm being unfair to her. I hate every bit of this. I want to make our marriage work, but I'm questioning everything I thought I knew about us. I'm lost, completely lost. All I want is to figure out how to navigate this mess, for the sake of our marriage, for my sanity, for our son. But I can't see the way forward, not yet. Update 1. Earlier this week, my wife, 30F, and I were finally able to sit down and really hash things out. I'll be honest, that talk was overdue, but the distance I'd taken helped. Even though everything still feels incredibly hurtful, a massive betrayal I'm honestly not sure I'll ever fully wrap my head around, I wasn't on the edge of losing it anymore. I could actually breathe and listen to her side. She genuinely believed I was about to call it quits for good. Looking at her across the table, I saw that fear in her, so I made it clear, we're at a crossroads, not an ending, but we need to lay everything out. That's when she offered a real, from the gut apology, not just for what her family did, but for her part in it too. She swore she never meant to hurt me and had convinced herself she was sparing me more pain. But now, she admits that, deep down, she was just shielding herself. She was terrified that telling me the truth wouldn't just end the wedding, but end us entirely. She's lost friends and other relationships over her family before and couldn't stand the thought of losing me too. Over the years, she said, she'd had countless moments where she wanted to come clean, but each time she talked herself out of it, the cover-up only grew, the guilt only got heavier, and she felt more and more stuck. Hearing her admit all that, it was a lot. I told her point blank that I didn't agree with any of her choices, and that I desperately wished she'd trusted me, and us, enough to just be honest. I meant every word of it. No matter what she thought, I wouldn't have left her for that. We could have worked through it together. Then she asked, almost desperately, where do we go from here? She promised, no matter what, the secrecy ends now, no more hidden truths, no more half-stories. I told her I still wanted to work on our marriage, but things absolutely had to change. We couldn't keep living with her family's shadow in every room, and I made it crystal clear that I wouldn't have our son, 2M, exposed to that chaos. She asked me what I needed from her. I've never been the kind of person to issue ultimatums, and I didn't want to start now, but I was stone cold adamant. Any future we have together means radical, non-negotiable boundaries with her family. She admitted that just thinking about cutting ties like that, standing up to them, scared her. But then she told me, if it's between them and you and our son, I choose us. I could see she meant it, but I still didn't know how she'd truly respond when put to the test. I hated having to put her in this position, but after what her family did, I can't see any other way forward. Then, out of nowhere, she did something that gave me real hope for the first time. She grabbed her phone and sent a text to the family group chat. She made it clear, stop blowing up my phone, and the decision that they have no access to our son until further notice comes from both of us, and she fully supports it. She did that on her own, without me asking, just took a stand, right there. Unsurprisingly, her family did not take it well. They exploded, now she's disrespectful and ungrateful, and suddenly the black sheep eldest sister, 35F, and I are poisoning her against them. I read, what kind of man takes a woman away from her family over a spat? Which made my blood boil. This isn't a spat. I don't feel the need to prove anything about being a man. These people tried to run a whole campaign to ruin my life. The fact that they could look me dead in the eye, lie, and manipulate, none of it shocks me anymore, but it chills me all the same. I'm just trying to protect my wife, my son, myself. My wife has gone low contact with them now. Her family's always had this belief, partners and friends come and go, but family is constant. That's where ultimate loyalty belongs. They cannot, or will not, see that my wife, our son, and I are the core. Their extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nothing more, and they don't have any inherent claim to our son. Being a part of his life is a privilege, not a right. Maybe it was always stacked against me. Honestly, I never knew exactly what their problem with me was. The truth is, I always had the sinking feeling that they only put up with me because of my son. When I first met them, one of my wife's siblings, 28F, made a jab about my age, saying my wife was settling for me and could do better. That set the tone for everything else, a tight-knit, exclusionary group. With them, if one person doesn't like you, none of them will. I've long since stopped trying to untangle their logic. It's a rabbit hole with no bottom. So our plan now? We're moving to a new area, a clean slate, far enough away to keep the boundaries solid and give ourselves a real shot at building something healthy. I've brought up therapy, and we'll be starting it soon, something we should have done a long time ago. I know this move is the right thing, and even my oldest Sil has always encouraged us to distance ourselves from her family's toxic orbit. During wedding planning, she told my wife, you need your own space, away from them, or nothing changes. She was absolutely right. I've always known my wife is so much more than just the product of her family. I see her spark and generosity when we're away from their orbit. This is the side of her I fell in love with, the most loving, unselfish, decent person I've ever known. If I'm being totally honest, I still don't know how this will all turn out. I'm hurting, I feel betrayed, and my wife is wrestling with her own grief and guilt for going low contact. But I want to be hopeful. I want to heal if she's willing to heal with me. Closing the door on us now just doesn't feel right, not yet. Here's hoping we can find our way through, together. Update 2. I never expected my wife to sever every tie and connection all at once. The truth is, most of the contact we've maintained now is just about sticking to the boundaries we deeply discussed, especially the things we both agreed would no longer be acceptable. There are certain behaviors and patterns that simply can't continue, and that's something I'm not willing to tolerate anymore. Despite that, what my wife chooses to do now is entirely up to her. If my in-laws are making their own choices, it's really none of my business anymore. I can't watch over their every action or keep track of their thoughts. What matters is that, in the long run, the truth always comes to light. Still, I want to be upfront. I don't pretend to agree with everything my wife's done, and I'm not naive enough to imagine that solving all of this will be simple. It's going to be tough, but I'm ready and willing to put in the effort, to genuinely give our marriage one honest shot. Just because the trust between us has been broken doesn't mean it's impossible to rebuild it. Many couples throughout history have faced terrible trust issues and found their way back. When I got married, I made a deep, personal commitment. Marriage is about making a vow, to stick together through the good and the bad. That promise doesn't mean every situation is forgivable or that every problem can be solved. Of course, there are times when separation is the only answer. But not every case must end that way, and I refuse to give up without fighting for what we once had. I made my vows to give this relationship a real, sincere try, especially in the hard times. Update 3. Things have taken a turn I never saw coming, and I'm questioning everything all over again. We've been in therapy for about 6 weeks now, and I thought we were making real progress. My wife seemed committed to the boundaries we'd set, and we were finally having those deep conversations that had been missing for so long. The move to our new place felt like a fresh start. No more surprise visits from her family, no more guilt trips about keeping our son away from them. But then last Tuesday happened. I came home early from work to surprise my wife and son. I picked up takeout from that Thai place she loves, thinking we could have a nice dinner together. When I walked in, I heard her on the phone in the kitchen, speaking in that hushed tone she only uses when she's trying to keep something from me. My stomach dropped immediately. I knew that voice too well. I stood in the hallway, frozen, as I heard her say, I know. He doesn't understand how hard this is for me. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice." There was a pause, then, "Maybe you're right. Maybe I should have just let things play out differently." My heart was pounding. I couldn't move. Was she talking to her family? About us? Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "I miss you too. This distance is killing me." I must have made a noise because she suddenly went quiet, then quickly said, "I have to go," and hung up. When I walked into the kitchen, she was standing there looking guilty as hell, phone clutched in her hand. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just my sister," she said, but she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Which sister?" The pause was too long. "Sarah. That's her youngest sister, the one who was particularly vicious in those family group chat screenshots. The same Sarah who called me a loser and said I'd never be good enough for you? That Sarah?" She started crying then, which only made me angrier. "It's not what you think." She reached out to apologize, and we've been talking. She says the family wants to make things right. I felt like the floor was falling out from under me. "How long?" "What? How long have you been talking to her behind my back?" Another long pause. "About 3 weeks. 3 weeks. While we were in therapy, while she was promising me complete honesty, while we were supposedly rebuilding our trust, she was secretly talking to the people who tried to destroy me." "What else?" I asked. "What else have you been hiding?" That's when she broke down completely. Through her tears, she told me that her family had been reaching out individually, not through the group chat. They'd been telling her how much they miss her, how they're worried about our son not knowing his grandparents, how I'm controlling her and isolating her from the people who love her. But here's the part that really gets me: she's been considering taking our son to see them. "Without me, just for a few hours," she said. "Just so he can know his family." I lost it. Not screaming or anything, but I went completely cold. "After everything we've talked about. After all the promises you made. You're still choosing them." "I'm not choosing them. I'm trying to find a middle ground." "There is no middle ground with people who spent months trying to ruin my life." She kept trying to justify it, saying she thought maybe if our son met them, if they saw how happy we could all be together, things might change. She actually believed they had changed, that their apologies were genuine. I told her I needed to think, and I've been staying at a hotel for the past 4 days. My wife has been calling and texting nonstop, begging me to come home, promising she'll cut contact again. But I don't know if I believe her anymore. The worst part? I called my therapist for an emergency session, and when I told him what happened, he asked me something that's been haunting me since. "Do you think this is the first time she's gone behind your back since you've been together?" I realized I don't know. How many other times has she hidden things from me to keep the peace or to avoid hurting me? How many times has she prioritized her family's feelings over our marriage without me even knowing? Yesterday, my wife's eldest sister, the black sheep who originally threatened to expose the truth, called me. She said she'd heard about what was happening and wanted to warn me about something. Apparently, the family has been planning this whole reconciliation thing. They never really accepted our boundaries, they've just been regrouping. The plan was to get my wife back in contact, then gradually push for more access to our son, then eventually get back to controlling our lives like before. "They see this as a war they're going to win," she told me. "And they think your wife is their way back in." I don't know what to do anymore. Part of me wants to fight for my marriage, but I'm starting to wonder if my wife will ever truly choose us over them. She says she loves me, but her actions keep telling a different story. Our son keeps asking where daddy is, and it's breaking my heart. But I can't go back to that house and pretend everything's okay when I don't know if I can trust my wife ever again. I have a lawyer consultation scheduled for Monday. I really hoped it would never come to this. Update 4. The lawyer consultation didn't go the way I expected. I walked in thinking I'd be discussing divorce papers and custody arrangements, but instead found myself staring at evidence that turned my world upside down all over again. I brought screenshots of the family group chat messages my wife had shown me months ago, thinking they'd help establish a pattern of harassment for the custody case, but when the lawyer looked at them, something didn't sit right with her. The timestamp seemed off, and some of the message formatting looked inconsistent. I'd recommend having these analyzed by a digital forensics expert, she said. If you're going to court, we need to make sure this evidence is authentic. I honestly thought she was being overly cautious, but I agreed. 3 days later, I got a call that made my hands shake. The expert found that several of the screenshots had been digitally altered. Messages had been added, timestamps changed, and some conversations that appeared to be from the family group chat were actually composites from different conversations entirely. My wife had been lying about the extent of her family's involvement from the very beginning. I confronted her that evening when I came to pick up our son for my scheduled time with him. She was in the kitchen making dinner, looking more relaxed than I'd seen her in weeks. When I showed her the forensics report, the color drained from her face. I can explain, you fabricated evidence against your own family? The truth came spilling out in fragments. Yes, her family had been involved in some of the cyberbullying, but not nearly to the extent she'd claimed. The worst messages, the ones that had made me feel physically sick, those were fake. She'd created them to make me hate her family enough to cut contact completely. Why? Was all I could manage. She broke down then, telling me something I never could have imagined. She'd been having an emotional affair with a coworker for over a year. Nothing physical, she swore, but they'd grown close during those late nights at the office I thought were just work stress. Her family had found out about it, not the cyberbullying, but the affair, and they'd been pressuring her to confess to me. They kept saying I was going to destroy our family, that I needed to come clean or they would tell you themselves. I panicked. I thought if I could make you hate them, if I could make you think they were the real threat to our marriage, then I'd never listen if they tried to tell me the truth. The phone calls over the past few weeks? They weren't about reconciliation. Her family had been begging her to tell me about the affair before it went any further. Her sister Sarah, the one she claimed was apologizing, had actually been pleading with her to end things with her coworker and be honest with me. The night you overheard me on the phone, she whispered, I wasn't talking to Sarah. I was talking to him. To Marcus. Marcus. I knew Marcus from her company's holiday parties. Tall, charming, the kind of guy who always seemed to have a crowd around him laughing at his stories. I'd even liked him. How long? I asked. It started about 18 months ago. Just coffee at first, then longer conversations, staying late together. She was crying now. But nothing physical happened, I swear. We never even kissed. But she loved him. I could see it in her face as she talked about him. The way her voice softened when she said his name, the same way it used to soften when she talked about me. The most devastating part? Her family, the same people I'd been thinking of as manipulative villains for months, they'd actually been trying to protect our marriage. They'd discovered the emotional affair and had been pushing her to end it and fight for us. When they realized she was manipulating me instead, that's when the desperate phone calls started. I sat in my car outside her house for 2 hours that night, just trying to process it all. Our entire separation, the boundaries I'd insisted on, the therapy sessions where we talked about trust and honesty, all of it had been built on lies she'd created to cover up her feelings for another man. The next morning, I called her eldest sister. The conversation was surreal. We never understood why you suddenly hated us so much, she said. When she showed us those screenshots she claimed we'd sent, we were horrified. We knew some of the family had made a few stupid comments about you in the beginning, but nothing like what she was claiming. We thought maybe she was having some kind of breakdown. They'd been trying to stage an intervention, not a reconciliation. They wanted to sit us all down together and figure out what was really happening to our family. We love our sister, she told me, but what she's done to you, to your son, to all of us, it's not okay. We just want the truth to come out so everyone can heal. I have another meeting with my lawyer tomorrow, but now I don't know what I want anymore. Part of me feels vindicated. I wasn't crazy, something had been wrong this whole time. But part of me feels like an idiot for believing her manipulation so completely. My wife has been calling nonstop since our conversation, leaving voicemails saying she's ended things with Marcus, that she's sorry, that we can still fix this. But I don't even know who she is anymore. The woman I married wouldn't have been capable of this level of deception. Our son asked me yesterday why mommy cries so much now. I didn't know what to tell him. I keep thinking about those nights when I'd come home stressed about the cyberbullying, and she'd hold me and tell me everything would be okay. She was comforting me for trauma that she'd partially fabricated, while emotionally cheating on me with another man. I don't know how you come back from something like this. Update 5. The meeting with my lawyer yesterday was supposed to clarify things, but instead it opened up a whole new can of worms that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. She'd reviewed everything, the original cyberbullying evidence, the forensics report showing the fabricated screenshots, and the timeline of my wife's emotional affair. But then she asked me something that stopped me cold. Have you considered getting a paternity test for your son? The question hit me like a physical blow. What? Why would I? The timeline bothers me, she said, pulling out a calendar. Your wife says the emotional affair started 18 months ago. Your son is 2 years old. But emotional affairs often have longer build-ups than people admit, and if she's been willing to fabricate evidence and lie about major events. She trailed off, letting me connect the dots myself. I told her she was crazy, that there was no way. My son looks just like me, everyone says so, but she suggested it anyway, just to remove any doubt. If you're going to fight for custody, you want to be absolutely certain of your legal standing. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through old photos on my wife's social media, looking for any trace of Marcus from before I thought they'd met. And I found something that made my stomach drop. A company retreat photo from 3 years ago. There's Marcus in the background, and my wife is in the same group shot. 3 years ago, 6 months before she got pregnant. I called in sick to work and spent the day spiraling. I kept staring at pictures of my son, looking for resemblances I'd never questioned before. His eyes are brown like mine, but so are Marcus's. His smile. God, I couldn't tell anymore. That evening, I picked up a paternity test kit from the pharmacy. My hands were shaking as I paid for it. The cashier gave me a sympathetic look, like she knew exactly what kind of hell I was going through. But when I got to my wife's house to see our son, something else happened that changed everything again. I was sitting on the living room floor playing blocks with him when my wife's phone buzzed on the coffee table. The screen lit up with a text preview, and I saw Marcus's name. Without thinking, I grabbed the phone. The message read, "I told my wife about us. She's filing for divorce. We can finally be together." My wife came out of the kitchen just as I was reading it. When she saw me holding her phone, her face went white. It's not what it looks like, she started, but I was already scrolling up through their recent messages. What I found there was so much worse than just an emotional affair. They'd been physical. For months. The late nights at the office weren't just emotional connections. They'd been sleeping together in his office, in hotels during business trips I'd never questioned. And the messages weren't just romantic, they were planning a future together. "We just need to get through the divorce proceedings," one of his messages from last week read. "Then we can move in together and you can bring your son." Your son. Not our son. Marcus knew. "How long have you been planning to leave me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She was crying, but I was past caring about her tears. "It's not like that, I never wanted it to go this far. I love you, I love our family, you love him," I said. It wasn't a question. She didn't deny it. The worst part was realizing that everything, the fabricated screenshots, the fake family drama, even her sudden willingness to fight for our marriage, it had all been a stalling tactic. She'd been buying time to figure out how to leave me while keeping our son and avoiding looking like the villain. Her family's desperate calls hadn't been about reconciliation or confessing to cyberbullying. They'd found out about the affair, realized she was planning to leave me, and had been trying to save our marriage before it was too late. They'd been trying to protect me. "The cyberbullying," I said suddenly. "How much of it was actually them?" She looked down. "Maybe 20%. A few stupid comments early on, some fake reviews. But most of it was just random trolls online. I let you believe it was all them because it gave us an excuse to cut them off. So she could have her affair without them interfering." I left that night with a paternity test kit still in my car, but somehow it didn't matter anymore. Whether or not my son is biologically mine, he's the only family I've left who hasn't betrayed me. And I'm going to fight for him. This morning, I called my wife's eldest sister and told her everything. She cried. Actually cried. "We've been so worried about you both. We thought she was having some kind of breakdown, but we never imagined. I'm so sorry. We should have tried harder to get through to you." She's offered to testify in the custody hearing about my wife's deception and the fabricated evidence. "That little boy deserves a parent who will put him first," she said. My wife has been calling nonstop since I left last night. Her voicemails have evolved from apologies to panic to what sounds like bargaining. The latest one said she's willing to give up Marcus if I'll take her back. But I think I'm finally done. Not just with her, but with trying to make sense of someone who could fabricate evidence against her own family, emotionally abuse me for months, and plan to take my son away from me while pretending to work on our marriage. Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce. And I'm going to get that paternity test, not because I don't love my son, but because I need to know the full scope of what I'm dealing with. I never thought I'd be grateful to her family, but right now, they might be the only allies I have left.